this is Rescar5956. I have Dungeon Defender Planner loaded up right now. It doesn't exactly show the console DU anymore, but it used to, whatever. I'm kind of just loading it up to show kind of tips and tricks and strats and stuff for Insane plus Pure Strat on Dungeon Defenders for Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 technically, just console version. I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to care, but I have a friend that it's for specifically. You know who you are. He might join in the, we might start a Discord call in the middle of this. Anyway, so basically, trying to think of what's a good map to kind of showcase stuff. Actually, you know what? Misty Mire works really well. So, basically, for tower uses, first of all, wyverns. That's the first thing I'm going to address because it's really important to know wyverns on later maps. Electric and snare. You have to aura stack. Only thing to do. And I'll kind of show some of the places for specific maps that are harder to figure out in a bit here. But anyways though, so the next thing that, because that's something for Insane plus Pure Strat, that's just like nothing else really works well for it. So that being said, enemies, just regular enemies. So electric and ensnare combo is the most important. You'll probably want to have them slightly separated, though that's kind of up to you because you can have them completely together. Even if it's just a little bit, even if you keep them completely together, it can still be good. Like, even if you're fine with doing that, it can still be good to have them slightly separate just because upgrading can be really hard. But basically, let's just use this, I'll use this spawn gate as an example. So basically you would want like electric and snare. Don't have it too close to the gate unless you need to, as well. It's something that's important to note. And then the other thing for enemies, Inferno and Gas, if you place those in front of the auras, then it can stagger, or it can kill a lot of the enemies before they go through the auras. And by killing a lot of the enemies before they go through the auras take a lot less damage. Which is really important. You have to choose when to wave skip and when to upgrade towers extremely carefully with Insane plus Pure Strat. So then, as for ogres, you would want to have your ogre defense before this. Oh, wait, hold on. Proxy Mine is also good for the end of stuff, for cleanup with certain things, specifically Dark Elf Warriors. Ethereal can work too. That being said, they're also good for ogre defense. You kind of would want your ogre defense at the end of it, so let's just pretend the setup's here as well. You usually want to use bouncers. And then you also want behind the bouncers a projectile thing, and the reason why is because you want to aggro the ogre beforehand. If you use 2 bouncers, and for some reason everything's blue now, how does... Oh, there we go. Okay, so if you have 2 bouncers, though, set up properly, then what you can do is have a Harpoon turret set up in a way to where the ogre gets here, like in the middle, and then if you buff the Harpoon turret with an Apprentice Guardian, you can get the ogre to aggro to the Harpoon, but it'll be taking a lot of damage from the bouncers. It will eventually attack the bouncers, but it'll stay trying to attack the Harpoon for a good while. And then once it does that, you want to go back and forth between which bouncer is buffed, and then the ogre will keep turning and turning and turning. Though 1 bouncer is fine. The other thing is walls can work with ogres. Magic Blockade, though, I would suggest using more for, let's say you have like 1 DU left and no physical defenses, like on a map without ogres. You could place a wall somewhere that the Dark Elf Warriors will never reach, and then that can work for it. And Harpoon turrets also will work for main enemies, but there's only some maps where you want to do that, and usually you only want to do that if there's no ogres. And if there are ogres and you need them down, they usually attack the other enemies anyways. But yeah, same thing goes for Fireball Tower. Deadly Striker, though, this is for mages and Dark Elf Warriors. Let's say you were to put it here. You could face it this way. You could face it this way, so then attacks mages in the spawn gate. And then if you have a problem with mages summoning skeletons normally, then the DSTs can help deal with them, at least a little bit. DSTs should not be used for ogres, though. Alternatively, fireballs are okay to use for ogres, but only if you have to. A fireball is essentially just a downgraded harpoon. Though, when it comes to dealing with regular enemies, it kind of goes for the same thing. Except it's splash damage instead, so it's kind of slightly different in use. It's more of splash damage instead of pierce, basically. Which, as far as pure strat goes, pierce is better. At least, in terms of the harpoon turret. Or maybe the pierce isn't better. Maybe it's just since the harpoon turret does enough extra damage, that's what's better. But I don't know, you decide. Is it the pierce or the damage that's the problem? Possibly both. I don't know. Lightning towers suck, though. They're basically just worse electric auras. They're electric auras, except the enemies will kill them. Like, faster, because they'll just whack them a few times, and it's dead. Strength trans, though, you want to put with your physical defenses if you have ogres. You should not need to if there are no ogres, though. So, and like I said before, electric and proxy work for ogre defense as well, with the rest of it. Slice and dice is also something for ogres, though you don't want to use it very often. You kind of only want to use it if you have to. So, like, for instance, this hill here. What you could do for this hill here as a setup is slice and dice, strength drain above it, like electric aura, like up here, and snare over here, and then proxy, and then fire trap and gas trap there. Possibly, I don't remember if you have the DU for this, but I think you can place a at least an ethereal there, and then you would want 2 harpoons behind it, basically. So, and normally you only want 1 harpoon, but for this setup you're going to want 2 because the slice and dice does not put out nearly enough damage. Slice and dices do have more HP than the bouncer blockade, though, so it is very useful. The other thing for just generic like towers and stuff like that to keep note of is Guardians. So Guardians are kind of an interesting thing to think about. So each of them, they are usable in pure strat, right? So Apprentice Guardian is the best because it gives the highest DPS change. Huntress Guardians are also really good to have, and you're going to want to, and by the way, you will need either multiple players or multiple controllers in to do this. So Huntress Guardian, what you can do is when you upgrade an aura, if you're buffing it with a Huntress Guardian, then when you upgrade it, it will actually keep the speed increase on it. So really only useful on electric auras, but it is very, very, very useful to have. So if you have a second panel in and you do that every time it needs the auras need upgraded, you upgrade them with that, and then you buff them with the Apprentice Guardian, they do a lot of damage. Squire Guardians, I don't really know of much use for them, like in general. Maybe to buff a wall's resistance, which could allow you to kill ogres by perma-stalling them. Or, because, like, you could just make them die because of the timer. But, that's probably not a good idea. You probably want Apprentice Guardian instead so that you can actually do extra damage to things. And then Monk Guardian is an interesting one to think about because technically there are some cases in which having extra range on, say, a Harpoon turret could be good. Or on a DST could be good. But for the most part, for Harpoons, they actually get worse with higher range because they just can't hit their target. And then with DSTs, they already have a lot of range anyways, so buffing them with a Monk Guardian there isn't really much of a point in that. So the main thing Monk Guardian would be used for, though, is if you want a higher score, you can go for Skin of Your Teeth. And the way that you do that is, let's say you have it set up, you have one electric aura here, like this, so the enemies walk past here. You let one walk past, and then you make it grow in size. You have an ensnare here, right? So they walk through, so then you have an electric aura here. So what you do is you kill most of the mobs here, right? And then, by the way, you will have to aura stack for this. And because you need the electric aura to be close enough to the crystal. Basically, though, you let the goblin... probably should be a goblin. You could try it with other things, but other things is not a good idea because they won't die super duper quickly. Basically, then you want to make the aura grow again as at the correct time to get Skin of Your Teeth. Adding in an Apprentice Guardian for this is a very good idea with a second battle. So, yeah. Anyways, though, specifics for maps, though, is a little bit different. So, Deeper Well, for instance, is one where you want backup auras. Not everything you can get backup auras in, but basically there's a lot of enemies, and the best way for choke points is you kind of place them so then they go in between. And then you want the traps for stalling, basically. Probably here and here. Sort of thing. I'm just gonna build one staircase area because it's the exact same on the other side. And then with the backup auras, the way it would work, it's kind of like this and this. And then you'd have like proxies in the back. Proxy in the back for Dark Elves. And then you basically just want some kind of physical defense in the back, either harpoons or fireballs, to deal with extra enemies that come up there. I would not use bowling balls, though. Because yes, they could go down this staircase here, but they don't do enough damage. And yes, they have knockback, but it's not enough to actually matter. So Foundries and Forges is one with ogres. They only come from this area here, where I put the one marker. And it's not every wave either. So you mainly want to deal with enemies here, kind of the same thing of traps at first and then some auras behind it, though the auras are best placed like here, which probably sounds crazy because that's crazy close to the enemy spawn gate. And then if I remember correctly, this is one of them that I actually have done in wave 25 too. I've done wave 25 insane plus pure strat for Deeper Well, Foundries and Forges, and Glitterhelm. I've made it to wave 22 on 3 different maps, which were Alchemical Laboratory, Servant's Quarters, and Misty Mire. So I have beaten 3 maps in Insane plus Pure Strat and come very close with 3 others. So another thing with this, though, is that since there is an ogre, you probably want to know what to do. Best thing to do, have this here sort of thing. A strength drain, like with your other auras, like this, right? So a strength drain here, and then kind of a bouncer and a harpoon, facing the bouncer, of course. So yeah, that's kind of that map, but that's like the easiest map that has ogres throughout it. Also, Deeper Well and Foundries have a point at about wave 18. The enemy amount stays about the same. It stops going up by several thousand. So that is something to keep note of. Mage's Quarters and above, I'm not entirely sure, though. Mage's Quarters, Alchemical Laboratory, I know it does go up a lot. But basically, though, Mage's Quarters, it's kind of the same thing as Foundries, except the Ogre is right here now. But the other thing is that you have Wyverns, so what's the best Wyvern defense? Electric and Snare. Although you can put these ones right here, and then it deals with regular enemies as well, which is really nice about Magus Quarters for the Wyvern defense. And then Alchemical Laboratory, though, there are no ogres. So basically you just want to focus on, okay, let's deal with the massive amounts of enemies. There's a lot. So basically just Inferno Gas in a lot of places, and then kind of in the main choke points, you want your auras. So the choke points, I'm actually just going to place Electric, because Electric and Snare pretty much always go together. If it's ever not, you should just specify it, honestly. At least for pure strat. So choke points here and here. And then technically this works as one as well. Here and here. And then no, right here won't work because it's too close to spawn gate, even if your aura stack. So these are kind of the 7 different locations where having auras could be useful. Although technically you could also put an extra set like here and here if you wanted to, so it's more of 9 places. You aren't going to place them on all 9 places. The must-have places is these spots, although these ones can be here and here as well. Having backup auras will be handy with this, though. Alternatively, you can use 2 electrics plus an ensnare, which would be something sort of like this. So, like, you have one here, the ensnare's like this, and then you have the extra electric like this sort of thing. And with the Huntress Guardian buff, with the second one upgraded, then when the ensnare dies, it should be able to deal with a lot of things still. Although you might want it a little bit. I think it's more of something like this. But yeah. And you will want the aura stack for that. And Servant's Quarters is a lot of the same, except Servant's Quarters is one of the few maps where you want to trap stack, and basically all you want to do is put Inferno traps at the spawn gates to deal with the mages. Specifically in this one here, because the enemies get stuck here. It's kind of a unique map in that sense. And this is one of the maps where Deadly Strikers are useful. So... Oh, whoops. Okay, apparently it's blue now. Okay. But, basically, though, yeah, it is important to note, though, that each map, there are specific routes that stuff comes out of for wave skipping, and I will explain that after I explain the general idea for strats for the maps. Castle Armory, kind of, you have an ogre from this gate up at the top, so you want to have ogre defense up here, so something like, and it doesn't have to be a lot, because this ogre isn't super strong. It only comes out in sets of 1. It can be kind of hard to do stuff for this map, though, because of the DU on it and the amount of stuff you have to defend. So basically just electric and snare in these areas. You kind of want it to do a mix between up here and here, possibly. But that's only if you don't have physical defenses down here, but you want physical defenses for the ogre down there. So you still do want it on the bridge, though, partially. Though it is to deal with these 2 areas, not this one as well. And it kind of goes for the same on opposite side. So then you want the same setup over here, except you can have it downward more. And if you can figure out if your build has the DU for it, however you set it up, you could technically try and get a second one in. Though traps are going to be very helpful for getting that set up. Of course, strength drain for the ogre stuff. Like this for like all the ogre things. So Hall of Court is an interesting one. You do not want more than a certain amount of players, because with enough players you have an ogre from front and back, I'm pretty sure, or left and right side. You only want to deal with one from the left side, and you want physical defenses on both staircases. And you want it in the form of, like, probably 2 bouncers, because it's at the top of the staircase, not the bottom. 2 bouncers and a harpoon, sort of thing. You have to be careful, though, because you do not want the ogre to not ball the crystal. For the wyverns, something that actually works is to put auras up here for them. Your auras up here for them. And then in the back, you just aura stack. So, or no, for the back, I just remembered, no, because they fly through here, too. So basically, for wyverns on this map, it's kind of neat, because it's sort of like Megas, where you can place auras to where they deal with enemies and wyverns at the same time. The wyverns are an enemy, but, whatever. So, throne room, you end up getting an ogre from both sides, a couple of waves. So you basically just want your physical defenses on both sides here. And then for aura placement, you can place an auras like at this part to deal with everything down the hull parts, and then like the middle ones towards the bottom. Yeah. And the like bottom ones on both left and right side. For the middle side, though, and for the left and right upper part of the bottom, you can kind of just have the auras over here deal with them just fine. So, yeah, and the auras that deal with the enemies here, that are like in between here, also deal with the wyverns. And then Royal Gardens, aura stacking on the crystals, of course. And then the ogres, I believe there's an ogre that comes from the back here. Yeah, if you have 3 players or more, so you want to be careful of that. But so you don't want more than 3 players in during combat. But then there is an ogre that comes from this side, some waves. Not every wave, though, and you don't need a crazy good thing against him, but you still do want something like, say, Bouncer, some Harpoons, Strength Drain, stuff like that. Let's see here. So, Ramparts, ogres can come from this top end and this bottom end. For defenses, of course, aura stack on this crystal here, and then kind of, here, are kind of where you want your auras. And then, so then you have your physical defenses for the ogres, like, in these areas. Although you do have to be careful placing them. And then the other thing is over here, is kind of where you place your wyvern defense for the wyverns coming from that way. Endless Spires is an interesting one, because originally I couldn't figure out how to get defenses like in these spots. So basically, though, what I learned is you can place auras like up this way. You will have to aura stack, though. Up this way on both sides, which deal with the wyverns coming in through there. And then up here, you can place auras, which will deal with both the wyverns and other enemies coming through there. As for the ogres, I believe they come from this area, and this area, though I don't remember. After a certain wave, you only get like 1 or 2. I believe it's this area over here, and this area over here, that they like to come from after a certain point, though it might be here. I don't recall exactly correctly, so that is something that you will have to find out yourself. So basically, though, this area, you still have the wyvern problem, though, and this is the only time I'm going to say, okay, use Harpoon turrets for the wyverns. Because it's a terrible idea. Anyways, though, trap stacking and ethereal here wouldn't be a bad idea as well. Like over here. They're kind of tricky to place, though, when trap stacking there. That is important to note. Or just 2 harpoons. I don't know. You're going to have to kind of monkey around with that a bit. I still need to as well. But kind of the auras. So, and then the summit. No, the summit is an interesting map. So, up here you can place stuff for the wyverns. And then you can also, then you can place auras like here. And then they fly through both at that point. So if these ones die, they'll fly through here a little bit, though you have to place them properly if you want them to. Ogres come up from the bottom only. Up at the top here, you kind of just want auras and traps. though, and the particular mana that you do, I don't know. You might want backup auras. I've monkeyed around with this map a little bit. The exact idea for how you want the auras in this area is not entirely known for me, because having backup auras would be good, but you do have to make sure that you put enough effort into the wyverns and ogres, because you can just put a set of auras over here as well, and then you can have like 2 infernos and a gas kind of in between sort of thing. So like, yeah, that works, but basically the biggest problem with this is it's a very big map for the 90-second base build time. That is the biggest problem that you have with it. You will eventually have a couple of ogres on rounds past 10. So it does not cap at 1 ogre from the spawn gate. Now, Glitterhelm, on the other hand, is in my opinion the most interesting, because ogres come until wave 10. So if you can get past wave 10, then wave 11, what you want to do is you want to replace all of your physical defenses with traps, except like a few, and that's just for like keeping the Dark Elf warriors coming out. Deadly Strikers would be really useful with this. The aura placement can go either on the bridge here or just stacked on top of this. Either works for the wyverns here. You will also, however, want auras here for wyverns, and the reason why, even though there isn't a wyvern path there, is because sometimes the wyverns will push each other in such a way to where one comes in this direction. And I have died, I'm sure Strike Glitterhelm, from that happening. So, over here, you will most likely want to aura stack, though this is one of the really tricky spots. And you don't, using a fireball to help with it isn't a bad idea, but you also wanted to be able to attack the regular enemies here and the ogres coming out here. It isn't that you're using it to kill the wyverns, it's just that it's something helpful. If you can avoid it and use other things instead, for the wyverns and enemies and stuff, that's what you should do. But it's not a bad idea to use there. And no, this does not break me saying to use physical defense for well, I guess it kind of does, but I guess that's the only other exception, except it's a different kind of exception because, well, no, because I said Harpoon turrets, whatever. Anyways, so basically, yeah, just do that for that. And then the DLC maps, Sky City is impossible in Insane plus Pure Strat. Aquanos, basically just, you want to stall the shurikens out as long as possible. So you essentially want your Inferno and Gas inside of the Electric and Snare, which is, like, the only exception here. Also, I believe, so if you can figure out how to create aggro correctly, what you could also do, if you wanted to, is create only a couple of ogre spots. So up here would be one. Here would be another, and I believe that here is the last. The ogres coming down this way, though, could be a little bit of a problem, possibly, if you don't have stuff protecting the crystal from this side. Placing auras over here works for the fish wyverns and enemies at the same time, and placing stuff like this area. All of the DLC maps have caps to how much spawn on Aquanos. I believe it's around 2,000 is the cap at around wave 17, 18, but the enemies are extremely strong. So yeah. Barago, I don't know enough about what can be useful with Marago, especially since you have a big problem with the enemies here, because it's so close to the crystal. It's really hard to get auras in a way to where they won't just like instantly die. You can set up stuff here though, so then you can kill enemies and wyverns at the same time. I have run the Reagan Sane for this, so I do know somewhat. For this area here, you're going to want physical defenses here, because you want them to deal with both the ogre and regular enemies. And then down here, you kind of want a set of auras here. for the wyverns stacked on the crystal, and then having stuff here and here is not a bad idea. Is what you need for regular enemies, and then kind of in every single major choke point, ogres can go. So you have to have ogre defenses like everywhere. And there's eventually a wave that has like 5 ogres in the same wave, and that's for solo. With like 3 to 4 people, it's like 7 ogres, which that's a lot. And instead of 1 ogre per wave after a certain point, it's 3. Oh, likewise for Aquanos, it's 6. For Sky City, it's 11. But we're gonna ignore that. Anyway, so Misty Mire is probably the simplest one to figure out for Insane Plus Fear strat. I was kind of... That's why I was showing it as the example one. Kind of, Electric and Snare for the Wyverns. Gotta aura stack them. Both of these, well, you don't have to for here, but for here you do need to. And then, kind of, just the same setup of traps, if applicable. And then Electric and Snare. And then your, Ogre defense. So, yeah. In all areas there. Now for specifics when it comes to wave skipping. Okay, so Deeper Well. When you wave skip, most of the enemies will come down here. The second place they will spawn in is here. And the third place is here. This area down here. So kind of all 3. So kind of this gate, and then these gates down here. And then these gates will all trickle out with, well, specifically the ones on these sides more will trickle out still, but it'll mostly be 1, 2, and then 3 with the wave skipping with the order. And that's because that's the order they come out anyways, but basically if you wave skip, the order will almost always be the first one. At least until a certain point if you're wave skipping enough. Deeper Well, you can wave skip every other wave until wave 16. You can skip 14 and 16, but then you cannot skip 18. So you do not want to skip 14, 16. You want to skip either 17 or 18 as the last wave you skip, essentially. And then if you can manage to get a skip after wave 20, although I don't know how well it would work, but basically if you can manage to get a skip, I don't know when it would even be applicable. Actually, no, it wouldn't be applicable after that point. You can't skip after... If you skip wave 18 or 17 or above, no, if you skip wave 16 or above, you're not going to be able to get another skip in. So 17 or 18, best ways to skip. If you can manage to get your skip at 19, I suppose it could work, but that's only if your towers are having low enough upgrades. And then after you skip that last time, you pretty much want to repair as fast as you can, and then if you can somehow repair it before the build timer runs out, then you want to ready up immediately. Foundries and Forges, kind of the same thing as Deeper Well, except you can't skip every other wave. Knowing which waves you can and cannot skip, I don't know exactly. That's going to be something that you'd have to do by trial and error if you are interested in this. If anybody is, but Alchemical Laboratory, same deal as Foundries and Forges, and it's kind of that same way with all the rest of the base game maps. Endless Spires, you can skip every other wave, is actually an exception there, actually, because you can skip every other wave at the beginning, but not like a super huge amount. I don't know, it's weird. Glitterhelm, you can pull off quite a few skips, but it's kind of the same thing with wanting to skip 17, 18. Oh, and by the way, Deeper Well, Foundries and Forges, and Glitterhelm Caverns, and the Eternia Shards maps are the only ones that I believe actually have, like, a general area that the enemy amount caps. So, it is important to know that. So, getting a wave skip off at, like, wave 20 would be a lot better for a lot of the later maps instead. Or a lot of the other maps instead, Magus to Summit. But, yeah. Glitterhelm, yeah. But yeah, basically though, Foundries and Forges though, for where the enemies spawn, I believe it starts here, goes here, and then goes here. Though don't quote me on that, I don't have the best memory on that. Magus Quarters, I have no idea about Magus Quarters. You're going to have to figure that out yourself. or I'll figure it out later. Alchemical Laboratory, they come from up here. I don't remember which side more. I believe it's this side first. No, it's like kind of this entire side, and then this entire side, and then the middle. Though it might be the middle and then the side, No, yeah, it's the other way around. Kind of middle, this side, that side. So, and of course, you know, if they're coming out of this gate, they're going to go behind as well. So, servants' quarters, they come out of here first, then this area, and actually I believe that at the same time as coming out of, oh, no. And then the last two are these two, but if you're wave skipping at proper intervals, you shouldn't have to worry too much about these two lanes, like, at all. I believe it is 3 and then 4, though, here. So, let's see here. So, Castle Armory, I don't know. I've never had much luck with Castle Armory, so test that yourself, unfortunately. Hall of Court, kind of the same thing. Throne Room, this side, and then this side. This middle area, they all spill out at least a little bit, though, but the most come from over here. So, Royal Gardens. I believe they start in the front and then the back. Though it kind of moves from... It's kind of more of like here and here, but it's kind of like mixed the things with it. So, these two sides aren't really as... They don't really spill out quite as much, like huge amounts, but I believe it's this side and then this side. For the sides, I'm not entirely sure though, so that will be something that you will have to pay attention to yourself. By the way, it's for the sides, it's kind of the same for how they would normally spawn a lot of times, like say in survival normally. Ramparts, I don't remember either. Endless Spires, they mostly come from this top area here. They will mostly be at this choke point. I don't remember the specifics for which ones walk through the auras you want here. But yeah. Summit. Mostly from the bottom with wave skips. Though it's kind of... There's a very fine spread between it. So that's like the one where it's like, okay, you kind of gotta watch everything. And then Glitterhelm. Glitterhelm, there's like 2 gates at a time. So I think here and here. And then when this one stops, this one keeps going actually. And then here. And then here. Yeah. So, yeah. And then the DLCs, Misty Mire, it's spread evenly. Mirago, I don't remember. Aquanos, it's a couple of gates. It's like 3 different gates though. And it kind of swaps between different things. I believe is this gate, this, never mind, I don't remember for Aquanos, but that's DLC map. And then Sky City, it's just literally everywhere. And also Impossible, Insane Plus. Insane I will probably try and do, but yeah. So that's it. I guess my friend joined the solo. I'll just send it to them. And anybody else who finds this, if you're interested in running Insane Plus Pure Strat, now you can. Though you do need insanely high stat loot. Honestly, at this point, if you want to run it just with the loot, look at my videos and you can see the stats that I have, and possibly stats for other people I've played with before. If you want to just, like, mod in the stats, like, I'm not really a huge fan of it. I don't really like people modding in the game, hex modding, but if you want to just mod in the stats so that you can try it, just look at my stats for it if you want to know the whereabouts of what they should be. So, yeah, that's kind of it. Let's just go 5956 and peace out.